Hello, folks. Hello, and welcome to this workshop titled How to Prepare a Successful U.S. Scholar Fulbright Application Workshop for Faculty. This is the final event hosted by U of International Center in this Fulbright Awareness Month. As Claire mentioned, we kept the best for the last. But kidding, just kidding. All the events were fantastic. Those who attended, yesterday we had the My Fulbright in 7 minutes. Every event was carefully planned, thanks to Mabel and Claire and the Fulbright committee and so on and so forth. But this is the final event. We are expecting a few more folks, but as they show up in the interest of time, let's get this going. My name is Muthuswamy Kumaran. I teach nonprofit management in the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Sciences in CALS. I had the wonderful opportunity of a Fulbright scholarship in South Korea, 2019-2020. This is pre-COVID era. I had a teaching and research appointment at the Jeju National University. And actually, I had to come back 3 days, exactly 3 days before my scheduled return in mid-2020, because countries were closing their border, the world was shutting down, and so on and so forth. But without a question, completing a Fulbright was one of the most satisfying and profound professional experiences in my life. Absolutely. I remember several years ago, a dear friend of mine, Rhee Bromley, this guy had 4 Fulbright awards to India. He's a Scottish American. He was a vice provost of the SUNY system. But this guy, he loves India more than many Indians I know, including myself. So he had 4 Fulbright awards, and he was one of my kind of supporters, if you will. Earlier on, he used to tell me, you must go for Fulbright and so on and so forth. And I remember him telling me, once you are a Fulbrighter, you die as a Fulbrighter. I know a little bit harsh to say, but let me give a positive spin on that. Once you are a Fulbrighter, you will spend the rest of your wonderful life as a Fulbrighter. But all joke aside, Fulbright is a fabulous experience. It's a journey in so many ways. It's a professional journey, it's a personal journey, cultural journey, and so on and so forth. Once you are a Fulbrighter, you become a part of this global community of Fulbrighters, right? So, you become an academic ambassador from the US to the world, and so on and so forth. So personally for me, essentially, until mid-2019, I was a half-brighter, folks. And 2020, I became a Fulbrighter. So that's a little Fulbright joke and so on and so forth. But I'm sure many of you are in the process of thinking about applying for Fulbright or applying for Fulbright. As with everything, before the actual Fulbright experience kicks in, there is a process of, there's a grind of seeking the right Fulbright award and putting together the application packet and so on and so forth. And that is the theme of this workshop, how to prepare a successful US Scholar Fulbright application. And with us, we have 2 Fulbrighters who are also part of the U of Fulbright committee, who have excellent experiences. Of course, they received the Fulbright awards. They went through the grind, and they will give tips and some suggestions on sharpening your Fulbright application. Unfortunately, Dr. Swapna Kumar could not join us. That leaves 2 Fulbrighters at U of, who's going to make brief presentations. And more importantly, we'd like to make it as an interactive, because I'm sure many of you have questions and they will answer that. Let me start with the first presenter. I'm going to briefly introduce them, and I'm going to ask them to elaborate a little bit about their expertise before they get into the details, nuts and bolts of how to put together the application from their experience and suggestions. First up is Professor Greg Kiker, who's a professor and graduate coordinator in the Department of Agricultural and Biological Engineering at CALS. Professor Kiker has over 30 years of experience with simulation modeling of coupled human-natural systems, including ragland ecosystems, water resources, climate change, as well as decision, risk, and resilience analysis. Dr. Kiker is a 2-time, not a 1-time, two-time Fulbright scholar to South Africa. He has consulted internationally in the use of simulation models for ecosystem management, decision resilience analysis, and climate change. And in addition to all those things, Greg was also been the other end of the application process. He was an expert reviewer for Fulbright's 3 years. So he has this excellent perspective on, as an applicant, as a Fulbrighter, also as a reviewer of Fulbright packets on the professional, on the expertise side of it. So I'm sure he'll be sharing with both sides of his experience and so on. So with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Greg Kiker to share with us his tips and tools of applying for successful Fulbright work.
All
Greg,
right. Thanks, Kumar. Kumar, basically, yes, let's get right into it. I throw this in just for fun, how to win a Fulbright, but more realistically, how do you increase your chances of success and avoid the common mistakes of a Fulbright? So let's keep moving here. So over the talk, I'm going to give a very quick introduction to me. Then we're going to talk about how to get your Fulbright ready. Okay, so it's really about your the planning of Fulbright, the application process, tips for increasing how do you win, and then how do you lose? How do people lose? I've read a lot of Fulbrights, and basically, this is all my opinion, right? So again, just my opinion, but I've been around the block a few times, and I think I can. I've been reading a lot of Fulbrights from the University of Florida, and I can almost always get you in the final picks. If you follow, I usually read them a few times. We work with professors. I'm willing to do that for anybody at UF, student or professor. How many people usually take me up? Usually 3 or 4. I've been batting really good lately. Almost everybody I've helped has gotten Fulbrights. So yeah, so I'm pretty confident that we know how to write a really a competitive proposal. So, but it's not, this talk is just starting you out. But what I am assuming is that you work out all the details of your personal life, how it works, all that. I can help, but my job really is to help you win on the proposal side. So that, having said that, let's keep moving. All right, so here I am. That's what I looked like a long time ago. I got a Fulbright Award as a student in 1992 from the University of Florida when I was here in my grad students days. And then I got another Fulbright Award as a professor in 2012 from, again, Florida as a professor. So I've been through it twice, both to South Africa, and I do a lot of work in South Africa, Southern Africa, Africa in general. But since that time, and if you win a Fulbright, they often will ask you to be on the selection board. So I was on the Fulbright selection board for about 3 years, from 2013, 2016, I think 4 years official. The tours are 3 or 4 years. Each year we would review about 40 to 50 applications, sometimes as many as 70, from both academics and professionals, not the student stuff. So students are a different panel, but again, I do read through student ones, and I'm on the board that interviews them. So again, even students, if you have students that are interested, send them my way. We are quite successful in getting some really competitive student proposals. But today, I'm only focusing on Fulbright scholars, that is the professors. I also served on the Fulbright Scholar Discipline Review Board, that is water resources and the environment. So I reviewed every Fulbright that had to do with water resources or environmental science. So that's for any country. So there's 2 boards. One is disciplinary, and then the other one is the country itself. The disciplinary board, I'll talk briefly about that. That's just kind of a quick look at whether the disciplinary side of this review, of this proposal is worth it. It's not a final decision. And then again, I will help anybody who asks, and we'll talk about that. And I think that phone number might be wrong now, but the email is always right. It's best to email. So there are lots of types of Fulbright Awards. So first of all, go to the Fulbright site. So professors go here, students go there to find out more. Okay, there's lots. Every year the Fulbright's always changing and flipping and flying these awards. So look and see what award fits you. There's lots of types. Okay, some are short term, some are flex. We'll talk about that in a second. The core awards are ones that kind of the main ones. They can go from anywhere from 3 months to about 11 months. You usually are fully resident in the country you choose. You have to apply to one country. So you have to pick a country. That's the first thing you tend to have to do. And I'll talk through that in a little while in some other slides. The flex, so that's 3 to 11 months there, in one long string. The flex awards are newer. They allow you to go for 1 to 3 months each year for about 2 to 3 years. So it's almost like a summer travel grant in a way. So it lets you go back to the same country if you have field work to do or something. It is still judged in the same pool as the core awards, because I read flex awards too. And so for South Africa. So if you're wanting to do a flex award, you just have to structure it differently. But we can help out with that too. But that's for short-term travel to another country, but multiple years. So that's the main difference. There are regional awards sometimes that are more than one country. They can be over a year. They are less normal. And if you have questions, we'll wait till the end, or you can put them in the chat and we'll hit them there. So this Fulbright Specialist Awards is a specialist where you go for a very short period of time, and that is something where it's usually 1 to 3 months and is focused around your being specialist. So
you could send other people out to do stuff that you wouldn't be the one doing it.
I think we got Christina. Can you mute yourself?
Awesome, Love.
Folks, if you could all please mute your Zoom, that'll be good.
All right. So basically, every Fulbright Award has varying teaching and research mixes. So look at the award. They always tell you, so that I think we still got them on there, or I can go mute them. So basically,
no, the whole engineering department.
Christina, could you please mute your Zoom, please?
Or Claire, can you mute her?
Probably she's multitasking. There it is.
Yeah. So Kumar, you can do it. Just go to participants and mute her.
Oh, she's muted now.
Okay. All right, great. So basically, all have varying teaching. So again, each award that you look at, you can look, and I applied for all research ones. So I didn't do any specific teaching. I did do workshops and work with students, but you can also put in to go teach a course. And a lot of universities love that because you can come in as a professor and teach a whole course. That's up to you. So again, do your homework in advance on which way you want to do it. If you want to teach, then you have to put in syllabuses, teaching kind of philosophies and design. And again, that can be very useful. And again, you'll get support. You can talk to the institutions that you're going to be working with to get more information on how they teach and do different things. We'll talk and get more about that as well. But every Fulbright Award is either teaching, research, or both. Okay, so take a look and see which one you want to do for which country. And some countries only allow certain ones, like they really want teachers, or they don't care, they'll take everybody. So every country within the Fulbright site will actually specify what type of awards they're willing to do. Let's get this going. Okay, let's move it to the next one. The success in getting an overall Fulbright application is proactivity. The very quickest you can probably throw one of these together is about 6 to 8 weeks. And we can do it because I did it last year with some, and that can be done. But you need to have your contacts ready. Optimal 6 to 12 months, meaning you should start about now for the deadline. That's about August usually, or during the summer. So I'm happy to help people all the way through spring and summer to kind of put it all together to get the planning right. Do the planning, do your homework on the country and its institutions. If you've never been there, which is fine, you still need to know the country a little bit. So you should be familiar with the country itself. It should come through in the application. When I was reading for South Africa, I could almost always tell the people who knew nothing about South Africa by the way they wrote their proposals. And those proposals did not do very well if we felt like they didn't know what the heck they were talking about. So it's really important that you have an idea of what's going on in that country and how it likes to see things. Fulbright is not an award that just drops Americans randomly into countries. It is a grant that is very much tuned towards folks from America going in very sensitively to these countries and working along with the cultures and institutions in those countries. And we'll talk a bit more about that too. Execution. have a lot of people read your proposal. I will read it. I will happily read it. And I will read it like a reviewer. And I will say, this is too boring, or this is too technical, or whatever, but I will tell the truth and we'll get it right. The good news is a few iterations and we can bring almost any award into what I call fighting shape, where it'll be in the very top tier of selections. It doesn't mean you win, but it certainly means it's very, very competitive. And you just need luck. So keep trying if you're unlucky once. If you try and you put a good proposal in and it makes it close, and we'll talk about the process, but if you didn't win, put it in again. Fulbright is happy for you to apply. You can apply with the same pretty much proposal. I would update it, but you could apply with the same topic. And I have had people, and when I was on the South Africa committee, that we saw one, we liked it, we sent it to the higher tiers. It didn't make it. It came back the next year. We sent it on to the higher tier again, and then it won. So they do win for multiple times. So luck is just luck. They only have a certain number to give. Depends on the mix of them, and like how many people apply from certain areas. So we'll talk a bit about that. The basic timeline for this is the actual selection process is slow and very methodical. So you start building your application around January, the spring of some year X. You usually do around July or August of that same year. So let's think July and August of 2024. They usually meet. They used to meet in DC. Now they pretty much meet online. And they get the first cut done in October, November. So they tell you by about Christmas, November, congratulations, you've made it through the first level. That goes on to the final countries. They have big things saying you did not win, you're just not dead yet. So effectively, then the second cut and final selections are usually February and March of this year. I have a friend just down the hall. She just won, and she let me know about a week ago that she had been selected for India. So right about now, late March, March, April, the letters go out, and they're usually via email, but they go out and anywhere from April to June of the next year. So you put in for August, you only get told yes or no by April or June of that year after. So when do you go up? When do you show up? Well, the money is usually available for you to go into country in the late summer or fall of that next year. And sometimes you can even chase it to X+2. That means, so my friend who just got one to India, she could probably go anywhere in the fall or maybe even January, February of 2025. It depends. They'll tell you when you have to begin and end it. Start at least 3 months ahead or years. Think about it. It takes a lot to get a Fulbright together. You have to organize your life. You have to organize your family. You have to organize schooling. Those things often can't be thrown together in a couple of weeks. The basic application is about 5 pages. Look at the guidance, and I'm here. So the good news is it's not a very long application. The bad news is you don't have a lot of room. So we'll talk about that. There are letters of recommendation from both local or from colleagues here that are really, really, really important. And there's also a letter of invitation that's absolutely critical from the institution you want to go to. They want to know that somebody in that country wants you there and is happy or excited about your potential Fulbright. So that's really critical. The first cut in October, like we say from DC, the second cut is done. So I worked on the first cut once. So I worked in DC back in the day when I read these. Now I think they do them via Zoom. And we would go through and cut about 25 to 30% of the ones out, and we'd rate them. We would rate them satisfactory or highly recommended, and then we'd send them on. Unsatisfactory got stopped right there. They got letters saying thanks, but no thanks. Almost always a pretty good proposal could make it through. But if it got a satisfactory, it usually was kind of a dead person walking, meaning it was there and it got pushed up, but it probably wasn't going to win. So my job at Florida is to get you into the highly recommended category. So that's what I think we can do. The second cut is in country, sometimes in country committees. So if you're going, I think India had their own in country committee, but sometimes it's just embassy staff in that country selecting. So, and I was told that the embassy staff almost always takes only highly recommended proposals. So they pretty much threw out all the satisfactories and only started selecting from the really high recommended. So again, really important to get in that highly recommended category. And that's how we do it from here. and then watch for announcements. So that's kind of how it works. They tell you when you get it, if you get a Fulbright, they give you the option. You can turn it down right then. You can't postpone it. You have to apply again. So they say, congratulations, here it is. You have 2 to 3 weeks to say yeah, or some point of time. But you can't put it off. You can't bank it for another year. You either take it or you leave it. So we'll go from there. So first steps. So you got to find a country. Whatever, there's a lot of countries in this on this earth. You got to apply. You can only apply to one each year. Some people are like, well, can I apply to this country and maybe this other one? Pick one country. Pick the one you want to work in. Get to know the Fulbright site, like I said before. Find out what priorities are operative in each country. They change from year to year. Okay, so do look at them and try to write towards them. If a country said, oh, we want environmental science people, and you're not one, you can still put in, but you might want to find an angle on that. Or if you look at, you might be other, they might work it into health the next year, or agriculture, or behavioral sciences. So they do change from country to country. You need to get to know the academic institutions within that country, whether they're NGOs or government. This is where asking friends. I know a lot of people in South Africa. I know almost everybody in the kind of environmental ecological world and the country and the institutions that are there. So I can help you find the people you're looking for. Now in health related professions, I'm useless, but I bet I could talk to somebody who might know somebody. And again, through your own networks, and UF is incredibly well connected, you can find the network you're looking for. So you can get to know the IEEE coordinators. These are the people who run the Fulbright. They will tell you things. They're nice and supportive. They want to answer your questions. So it's not as bad as like sometimes you talk to the coordinators like an NSF or EPA or something, and they're like, we can't talk to you. Sorry, this one's a lot. They will try to help you get a proposal that works. And if you have questions and they can answer them, great. They will try to reach out and try to help you. Get to know the odds for your country. How many people apply every year? What's the success rate? Where do people work in the country? So this is really important as well, because if you go to Europe, I can guarantee you a lot of people from the United States want to go to Europe and do Fulbrights. If you want to go to another country, there's a lot less competition for those. So, and even within a country like South Africa, let's say, 80% of all South African Fulbright applications were for Cape Town. Cape Town's a lovely place. I love Cape Town. But guess what? If you wrote a Cape Town proposal, it was in a big, huge bank of other people's really good proposals too. So often for people in South Africa, I would say, well, outside of Cape Town, where could you work? Like Johannesburg or Pietermaritzburg or Mpumalanga or find institutions sometimes that haven't been Fulbrighted to death. So that's really helps your odds of winning, because they're going for diversity in a country. They go for diversity of subject matter. They also go for diversity of place. So if they've already filled 2 or 3 Cape Town proposals, then they're going to hope to find something that's good that's not in Cape Town. So again, if you know this, then try to figure out where's not the most beaten path. And you don't always have to work with the most powerful institution. You may want to work with institutions that have been underserved. There's lots of interest in that as well. And you could have a huge impact at those institutions as well. So think about that carefully when you put it together. Who's on the first cut boards? People like me. People who won the year before. They're on a 3-year rotation. They're from different academic fields. We're going to come back to that. The fact that you write me a hyper-technical theoretical physics Fulbright is being read by an ag and bioengineer who may know what you're talking about, who may not. I read Fulbrights about opera, race relations, politics, photography. So you better write your Fulbright to be understandable by different people. So again, we do individual ratings. So what happens is they send them in, you send them in, we all individually rate them as judges. And then we come together and we go through all these and we have a group rating, a consensus rating, highly recommended, recommended, and not recommended. Not recommendeds end there. They tell them right in October, thanks, but you didn't move forward. Recommended and highly recommended go forward, but the highly recommendeds are almost always the ones that get selected. So let's get you into that highly recommended category. The group rating is always a consensus of 3 or 4 people. and we have conversations and negotiates. We'll say, I thought this was a highly rated. Another person says, yeah, I just gave it a recommendation. And then we would literally negotiate on whether it was high or recommended. And sometimes the easiest proposals of all to judge were all three highly recommended. So I'd go, oh, this is one from so-and-so on forestry, HR, highly recommend, highly, next. That's how long it took in real life, right? If they're all highly recommended, it's going to go in there. So what you do is if you get those, they just go to the final committees. It's the ones that were like, well, I liked it, but it had problems. That's not a good place to be. So we need to keep your application in the highly recommended camp, and I think we can help with it. Who's on the second cut board? So guys like me were on the first cut boards. The second cut boards are usually internal Fulbright boards filled with their own people. So in South Africa, it used to be a South African board, then they stopped doing it for a while. I don't know. And you could ask probably whether they have their own country level boards or it's just a bunch of people from the US Embassy. So that could be US citizens, State Department workers, or in-country embassy workers. That's often what can happen in some of the smaller countries as well. We're told, or I was told at the time, our ratings from the first meeting count a lot. So they would pretty much only read the highly recommended again. So especially unless the country was going for specific areas, they almost always took from the highly recommended thing. And generally, when we put them forward, of 100% of all the applications, we usually knocked out about a third. About a third of them were satisfactory, and then a third were about highly recommended. So that's about the same. So it's not hard to get a highly recommended rating. It's just, it usually is the one that people select. The groups are striving for diversity across in-country institutions and within U.S. institutions. So they try to grab people from all over the United States. They also try to grab different folk from certainly from different disciplines. So if there's 10 different engineers trying, they may only pick a couple of those and then pick a couple from a sector that are still good, but are from different areas. They certainly also try to spread them across their own countries and their own institutions. So when you create a proposal, think about what makes yours special. That's the most important thing. My views on the process. This process is very, very, very fair, egalitarian. It is about the application. It is not what school you're applying from. I took great, we killed proposals from Princeton as much as we allowed them. There were some really great proposals from universities I had never heard of, and we sent them through because they were great proposals. So it is very fair. It is not weighted in any bad way. I was very proud of the Fulbright selection process. I think it was extremely fair. A huge variety of fields are in there, goes from opera to race relations to astronomy to photography to graph theory to engineering. You've got to make your proposal clear to an interested, reasonably well-read person. On the committee I was in, I was the only engineer. We had an architect, and I think we had somebody in liberal arts and sciences. And of course, it changes every year too. So each year a person will rotate off and a new person would rotate on. So only 3 or 4 people, and they have from every field. They all had Fulbrights in the country though. So you almost always be upbeat, optimistic, and memorable. You've got to leave a good memory of your proposal. Get lots of people to read it, your colleagues, significant others, call in favors, right? I'll read it, I'll work on it, tune it. It's only 5 pages, but it's an important 5 pages. So how do I start? You got to pick a country, pick a region, pick a university, an agency, an NGO, or all 3. You can work with all 3. Do your homework, know the country, know its geography, its culture, its history. Why you have to think about why that country, why are you applying to this country? Talk to your colleagues, get a good view of how things work there. Don't go to the most popular places like I talked about. In South Africa, that means Cape Town. You can visit Cape Town. You can even take a week or 5 there and have a great vacation in Cape Town, but maybe you're operating out of another really cool place because, of course, in South Africa, there's nothing but really cool towns. How are you going? This is a really huge one. How are you going to reach the most people, and what are you going to leave behind? I always ask the legacy question, and I looked for that when I read proposals. What are you going to leave behind after your Fulbright? What is the thing that makes you special, and why they should give it to you as opposed to someone else? Talk to the coordinators. They want lots of high quality applications. I can answer a lot of questions, but the coordinators also will answer them. So we'll keep moving. Here's how to fail. This is failure strategies. This is my reverse psychology, terminal mistakes. And these are not actually quotes, but I was just kind of bringing them as ideas. I am awesome. Obviously, you should see that too. I've had people like, I am a National Academy member and I am da 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 da. And you get the sense of like, wow, this person's really smart. But if I read their proposal, and it's just about them, and how so much this country is so going to be so much better off by letting you in. Yeah, you won't get very far with that. Be humble. You need to show how good you are, but you also need to not like pump yourself a little too hard. This other one, this was one we got a lot. Methodology. I just want to go over there and see what happens. Yeah, the jazz hands ain't gonna work here. They want you to have a freaking plan, and I want you to have a plan too. It has to be well thought out. It doesn't have to be perfect and absolutely week by week, but you better have a clear research plan that you're going to go while you're there. If it's going to be talking to people, if it's going to be meeting, it's going to be traveling, put that in there. The people who just said, I'm going to go there and just encounter the place. No, we almost never approved anybody who had that kind of strategy. You need to have a plan. This is a great one. This country is a basket case. Only I can save it. Yeah, no, that's just not going to work. It won't fly. It's condescending. It's comically insensitive. You want to help. There may be challenges, but you can help it. Of course you're going to help, but you don't have to act like you're the savior of that place or that institution. Yeah, just don't. This project will be wonderful. We had a lot of these. Wonderful for my career. It's about me, and me. And this is awesome. And I'm going to do this. And I'm just from here. I'm going to go here and here and here. No. What is it? What about the country? What about the people? There's a term, helicopter research. We come in, we take data, we leave. That's not going to work for Fulbright. You need to build something with these places. This is a fun one too. I'm totally clueless about this country, but my passion will make up for it. No, it won't. No, it won't. You need to be sensitive and intelligent about the country you're going to, whatever that means. If it has a challenge with democracy, then you better be clueful about how they run things. If it's got places that are not no-goes, then you need to be clear about that, so that people don't wonder if you're just going to stumble into some very bad situations. And then this one is fun. I had this a lot too. The epistemological nexoid abstract topology is both obtuse, non-existential, and non-obligatory. Contrarily, in other words, be understandable. I had some theoretical physics dudes who came in and it sounded just like this. And I was like, what the heck is this? It has to be, so here's the most important thing I'll tell you. Don't clip out of your NSF proposal and drop it into this proposal. No. That will definitely be terminal to your application. What you need to do is maybe go from the broader impacts and build from there. You can take pieces out, but they do not want to know how great of a specific jargon using specialist you are. There's almost no chance that anybody in your field will be reading your application. And most of the time with the University of Florida ones, this is my biggest thing that I work on. Make it more understandable. Stop using jargon. What does this mean? What does this mean? I'm bored. It's just, boredom is the most killer of most Fulbrights. Don't be boring. What to do if you fail? Try again. Each year is totally different and a totally different mix of applicants. There's always, like I said, there's applications that end up being funded after the first unsuccessful attempt. Contact again. Sometimes the staff of the country can tell you or offer pointers. Oh yeah, the committee thought that this was too much and you need to scale it back a bit. They can give you some hints if you want to reach out to them. So don't just think, because they don't give you a kind of NSF style review of the whole thing. They just say, nope, sorry, but you can find out a little bit more if you ask the staff for that country. So I think that's about it for me, and I'll leave it there and we can go for questions. I know there's always specifics, so fire away.
Thank you, Greg. I always appreciate your energy, enthusiasm in going to meticulous details and connecting all the dots and so on, so on, so forth. So we have a good 10, 15 minutes for Q&A to Professor Kiker. Greg, there are some questions on the
Yeah.
chat side of the
Okay.
equation as well. So if you could please look at
Yep.
it.
Okay. I'm looking at the chat right now. To clarify, is the letter from the country you intend to travel a letter of recommendation or invitation? Kind of both. It must be a letter of invitation, like they know you're coming, and what are they providing? So if they say, "Oh, we're going to provide a computer, office space," like if you were planning a big campaign in the field and you're going to use their people to help, like if you like, let's say you're speaking Zulu, right? I don't know if you speak it, but I don't speak Zulu. So if you're going to do a big, like part of your problem is to go talk or challenge, or your research is to go into Zululand and talk to folk in Zulu, you might use people from that university, and they would put in there saying, "We've spoken, we love them, we're supportive of the methodology, and we'll provide translation, Zulu translation is needed per Dr. Purvis's methodology." They need to kind of know, the more you tie in with them, the better. Like you can kind of tell when institutions were like, "Who is this guy?" Because they write, "Hi, we are here. Dr. Purvis will be allowed to have a desk," sincerely. And they were like, "Whoa, what's about that one?" You need to have the, and we've had some that are like, "You must fund this proposal. This will flip and be awesome for us." And we were like, okay, they really want this thing, because they were going to build, let's say, a new program together. A lot of people would put in Fulbrights to say, "We want to start this program. Dr. Purvis is an expert in this program. We're going to use this to create a new master's curriculum program. And we're really excited because we're going to build something into the future that's," boy, the institutions love it when you build with them into the future. That's the one thing that I think gets you the best, because they really want you there. And it comes through in those letters. You can write a lot of the, but it isn't like an NSF where you say, "We officially support this plan." It can be more personal. It can be like, "No, we've had spoke, we can do that." The IIE, so the letter of recommendation is both. You have to have the letter. That if you don't have it, you're not going to proceed. So what I would do is, once you get talking and Zooming with different groups, find out, okay, how you want to do this, and then you can write the letter together. Perfectly okay. Another thing about letters, can you do more than one? Yes, you can. Now you only get one space for it, so you have to use your Adobe Appender to stick them all together. And we had a big discussion over this in on the board. Like, I had like 5 letters of recommendation. I was carpet bombing it, my proposal, saying because I knew everybody. So, "Greg's lovely. Greg's, this is cool. Yeah, we're totally in on this." I had from different institutions, and I jammed them all together into one big PDF and I sent it in. Other people were like, "That's overkill. You shouldn't do that." And so I was like, "No, I always believe overkill is better, right? If you have a bunch of institutions, then you can put that in. The more people, the better. They want to know that you're connected. How do we contract the IIE coordinator? So usually through the Fulbright site. Just find out what the country is. Usually they tell you the country coordinator. If not, you could ask, okay, who's the country coordinator for Zimbabwe? And usually it's the one for Southern Africa or something like that. They will put you in touch with them. IIE is the official people who run the Fulbright. It's an NGO that runs the Fulbright program. Fulbright is officially the State Department's money, but it's the other. Thanks for that. At this point of the year, would it be advisable for first-time Fulbright applicants to wait and apply? No, not necessarily. It depends on your schedule. What you do is you'll probably watch it. I would go ahead and contact the people you're interested in, like working with it, to see what's doable. Is it better this year? They might say, you can always wait another year, but life moves on. You move on. It's better to start the talks even now. You can always say, "Look, I'm going to wait and we're going to do it in." When I went to South Africa, I warned all my friends about a year or two before that I'm going to put one in a year or two. So they all knew it was coming. And so I gave them lots of warning, but I knew lots of people in the country. So I kind of seeded that, and I would go every year because I go to different research groups. So that made it nice, but I didn't like drop in. Like some people say, are you supposed to never have gone to the country? No, you can be doing a lot of research already with it. That doesn't seem to affect it. It does help you not seem clueless. The clueless is dangerous in a Fulbright application. So we can get, but you don't have to have visited there as long as you've done your homework on the country, right? So that's the key, is to make how to make a proposal that doesn't sound naive or is unrealistic or is going to try to change the world in 3 months. We did even criticize one saying this is a great proposal, but this is a 5-year plan, not a 1-year proposal. So remember, it goes 1 year, 11 months, give or take. You can stay longer, but you don't get more money. And sometimes there is a bit of some money, I guess you can find, but that's between you and Fulbright. Try to gear it towards the period that it's there. Yeah. Okay. So those are all the questions. Another one. Yeah. Can you speak to the differences in how proposals for teaching only, research only, and teaching research are evaluated and selected? They're all grouped together. So you put in what you want. Now, sometimes they'll, like for a certain country, they'll say, we'll only want teaching proposals. So you tell us the class, you show us a syllabus, you want to talk about your teaching philosophy. They want to see that you're a good teacher. Now, for American, for a lot of the systems we really work here, that's pretty good. We at IFAS, they go crazy in helping you get teaching philosophies and all good stuff. So usually you have plenty to talk about. What you really want to make sure of with a teaching proposal is that your teaching syllabus proposal fits into their calendar, right? So you're coming at the right time. You're teaching for the right periods. How long is their semester? How do they structure it? In South Africa, you still have the big, huge, mega 70% tests, right? They still have the old British kind of 70% of all grade in a term is one test. So you have to kind of gear yourself towards that. So if you have lots of assignments and things, you may want to make sure that that's the way they do things in that country. So that's where they are reviewed all together. So, and it just depends. Some countries really want you to be like, they'll say, we will focus on teaching proposals because they use these Fulbrights as substitute professors or professors on sabbatical or to fill holes. And that sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad, because you might have 300 people you're teaching in a very different fashion than you're used to, or the students may not be prepped as well. So you might assume that they're going to have 5 levels of differential calculus, and suddenly people there have hardly had algebra. So you need to talk with the different groups about what courses, what expectations, how you're going to be working with it, because you're going to come in there and take over from a professor, and they want that to be as smooth as possible. So that's how they do it. But they all get grouped together via country per country. So I read all the South Africa ones, whether they were flex, teaching, research only, and we just judged them all. We didn't say, oh, teaching's worth more or research only is worth more. And teaching research, it's up to you, right? You can teach a class and do research. Sure. Then you just have to describe both. And you have to remember the page limit's the same. So, and usually ones that, like, they'll say teaching ones, give us some examples of your syllabus and how you're teaching philosophy. You can write that stuff up too. So next question, in terms of outputs, what kinds of projects are funded? Book projects? Yep, they do that. Series? Yep. Documentary? Yep, I've seen all these. Digital projects? Sure. Pitch them. A photographer might be doing a photography series. An opera might be doing opera, right? No. It doesn't. The product is dependent on the field. So if you want to do peer-reviewed articles, sure. But I always think that the question that always keeps going is legacy. That's the one thing. No matter what you do, whether it's an opera or a digital art perspective, what is the legacy of you doing that with this institution at this time? That's the one question I always ask. And if they didn't have the word legacy or something about the legacy, I would always ding it. I'm like, because I was like, Greg in the legacy question. So I always make you say, why will this live after you leave? What makes the institution better because you were there? What makes the country better? What makes you better because you were there? What are you going to bring at Florida? You can do both. You could say, I'm going to introduce a lot more South African content into my art history course, and I'm going to teach a feature on this. And then we're going to co-develop or have something together where the students come together virtually to do this. Sure, pitch it. But I like the legacy. Legacy is so important. Fulbright is all about legacy. It's all about building something that lasts, not just something that's cool for 3 to 6 months or a year. It is, what are you going to leave behind in a good way? These these are career building relationships that you're creating here. Don't waste the opportunity. They don't micromanage you. People ask about Fulbright. So how much are they in your face? They're not in your face at all. They give you the money and then they figure you're going to get on with it. They're going to check on what you promised. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's up to you to use this to be transformative. The transformation is yours. They were the funders of your transformation. If you don't want to do it or it doesn't work out, well, okay, they'll take that chance.
Thank you, Greg. Folks, we are at the midpoint of this workshop. Before we move on to the second presenter, I'd like to add a few points on the letter as well as the teaching research combo. My Fulbright in Korea was, South Korea was teaching and research. So in terms of the teaching part of it, I taught a graduate course, the first ever my specialization is nonprofit NGO management. So I taught the first ever graduate course in NGO management in the Department of Sociology. So I connected with the Department of Sociology for the teaching piece, and they wrote a fabulous letter. Basically, in my Fulbright application, I clearly stated that I'm going to develop the first ever graduate course that is tailor-made to Korean context, and I'm going to transfer everything, the entire curriculum, PowerPoints to another professor, local professor. They really liked the idea, and they put that very strongly in the letter. They said, this is important. He's going to teach us the first ever course, and more importantly, he's going to transfer everything. By the way, during my lecture, there was a local professor sitting in my class. He was learning, observing, and I gave one-on-one consultation. At the end of it, I gave him a flash drive, everything, assignments, all the resources, all the prep, and so on and so forth. So that came very strong in the teaching side of it. Research side, I went to the other department, public administration. They have a World Environmental Association, kind of island studies institution, research institution. So I connected with them to do a needs assessment of NGOs management capacity. That's my specialization. So as you can see, they also wrote, they have an excellent network of local NGO leaders. So they mentioned, in addition to they give me desk, they did all those things. But these details come through very powerfully because they are actually telling the Fulbright people, this guy is needed at this point. So that is absolutely essential. To answer the question, it has to be a recommendation letter, as well as it's a strong invitation letter on your value addedness to the department, the research institution, so on and so forth. So the teaching combo, it is entirely left to you, balancing all those things. Once again, don't tell them you will do so much, you are going to change the world. That's not going to fly. That's what I did in the first, by the way, I got this award the second time around. First time, I said, I'm going to teach, I'm going to do research, I'm going to do service, train the NGO leaders, and so on and so forth. It didn't fly. Obviously, when you put your heart and soul into, for me, getting a Fulbright was a pinnacle of my career. I put 6 months on that, and it didn't click. So I was really, as you can imagine, it stung. But then I realized maybe I should tone it down. I was advised to tone it down, just focus on teaching and research. I ended up doing the service anyway. But in packing all the information, you need to be careful, and so on and so forth. By the way, folks, as you may or may not know, we have a Fulbright committee, whose the purpose of the committee is to increase the awareness and also provide support to anybody who's interested in seeking and writing the application. As Greg did, we are here to help you folks, and so on and so forth. If you are in the process of seeking, and I actually shared my entire application, my full application packet, to anybody who's interested. So we are glad to help you with all those things. If you are interested in identifying the right Fulbright, or in the process of applying, please contact, who's the contact person here? Either Mabel or Claire.
You can contact me.
Yeah, Claire is the right person. Claire does a very good job of connecting those who are interested with the committee, as well as individual professors, and so on and so forth. In the interest of time, let's move forward. Once again, we'll follow the same format, presentation, Q&A, and so on and so forth. The second presenter is Professor Robert Rhee, who's the John H. and Mary Lou Dasberg Professor of Law at U of Levin College of Law. He researches and teaches business law, including corporate law, mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, and fiduciary duty. In the year, in 2017, 2018, he received a Fulbright grant to serve as a distinguished lecturer and US Fulbright scholar at Yonsei University Law School in Seoul, Korea. So I invite Professor Rhee to share with us his experience, more importantly, giving some tips on those who are pursuing Fulbright opportunities.
Well, thank you. So I think that this presentation will fit nicely with the comments before. I think the comments before really goes through an overview of the whole process, and it's very, very thoughtful and informative. In this presentation, I'm just going to give an overview of my thought process and my application to the Fulbright, and I think it really dovetails nicely with the comments before. And so I applied to the Fulbright at Yonsei University. So I think the first thing is why Fulbright at Yonsei and Fulbright in Korea. So why Fulbright in general? I didn't even know about the Fulbright. I had heard about it, but I did not really know much about it until I came across a colleague. She had been away for a while, and I saw her in the hallway. And I said, "Hi, it's great to see you. Where you been?" And she did a Fulbright in Sweden, I believe, and just spoke wonderfully about the program and about the experience. She did a comparative analysis of family law between Sweden and the United States. That's her specialization, and this really, started to get the gears all working. It's like, that sounds really, really interesting. So I went to the website and started to learn more about the Fulbright. And the more I learned, the more interesting it was. Then I looked at specific applications or specific programs and availability. And then I looked through, and it was a process of basically self-selection, which is, did I qualify for that? No. Do I qualify for that? No. And it really is one of what it is that you can do for a particular country, how your expertise and how your interests can really fit the needs of the particular Fulbright program. So it is definitely not about where you want to be necessarily. Fulbright and perhaps Paris might be wonderful, but is there something that you provide to that specific program there? So I really think that researching the various Fulbright positions and really thinking very carefully about how you bring a particular expertise or a particular set of needs for that particular Fulbright. I think it's a way to go because the application itself is very much, in my view, a marketing package. It's a package that really markets you and your application and what you bring to what Fulbright has to offer and what Fulbright needs for that particular situation. And I really think getting that match is important, and it should be done so in a thoughtful way. So when you go to the Fulbright, there are various form applications that you have to fill out, and you should do that carefully. But there was also a letter component or a statement component to my Fulbright, and so I'm going to basically take pieces of the letter that I had written. And so there was a position for distinguished lectureship at Yonsei University. It was specifically at the law school. So far, it's good. I'm a law professor, so there's at least an initial match in terms of what is needed there. So I read further. It did not say any particular kind of a legal field, just one that matches with the law school. So I started to talk about obviously my interest and my connection to Korea, my cultural connection. I was born in Korea, naturalized U.S. citizen. I also had other connections to Yonsei as well. I had studied at Yonsei as a student over the summer in the language program, and during that summer, I also did an internship at one of the Korean companies there as well. So I had these initial connections, although they were not, I wouldn't say, particularly relevant to this application per se, but I do have some substantial connections to the country, certainly, and somewhat of a tenuous connection, a prior connection with Yonsei. So I talked about a marketing package, and so this was a lectureship, which means they wanted courses, and so I had proposed a specific set of courses. These were all areas within my expertise, and my basic message was I wanted to bring the core courses at law school, at an American law school, that would provide the foundational business law courses. And so all of these are pretty much foundational business law courses that you might want to take if you were at an American law school. And so that was basically my proposal. I'm a business law professor. This is what I do. This is what I teach. This is what I research. And so what I propose to bring to the program at Yonsei is the basic core courses in business law. So I offer to teach these 4 courses. And I thought that was a pretty strong message. As we may know, South Korea is an enterprising nation. It's an important country in terms of the global economy, and so I thought that this would be attractive. I thought that it would be a nice fit in terms of what I bring and in terms of what may interest Yonsei Law School and the Fulbright program in Korea. So I stated my qualifications in terms of my qualifications to teach these courses, as well as my research interests, and I think that my application demonstrates that, one, I'm able to teach these courses. I do have an expertise in these courses, and that it dovetails with my scholarly interests as well. Then, although this was a lectureship, I also wanted to do some research. And so in my application, I had proposed specific research questions that would be good for just a mutual exchange of ideas while I'm there. That I wanted to study Korean law, and that some of the things that I can bring is an expertise in American law with respect to business law. And I had proposed a specific research project, although this wasn't a research-oriented Fulbright position. It was a lectureship. I had also proposed a research project, and I thought that also strengthened the application as well, to suggest that I'm there to teach, but while I'm teaching, I'm also want to do some research on my own. And here are the relevant lines of inquiry for the particular country that really meets with me learning more about the local laws, as well as me providing some expertise in U.S. law as well. I talked about why Fulbright and why Fulbright at Yonsei University. I go into my connections with Korea, and so I think that this strengthened the application because it shows that I'm very familiar with the country, and I have a very strong interest in the country. I had been there previously. That I understand. Generally speaking, the country have bring to bear some language skills, cultural skills, and that I will not be a complete stranger in the country as well. So I don't exactly know why I got the award. I got the award, but I do. But if I were to reflect back, what was the part of the success? One, I felt like I offered a good package for the Fulbright, and I offered a good package to Yonsei Law School. This is something that they might have been interested in. I proposed a research proposal as well, although it wasn't required, but I did offer up some specific things that I wanted to do while there in terms of research and research agenda. And then lastly, my connection to Korea and Yonsei and my familiarity with the country. And so I felt like this was a recall back to my comment about it really does have to be a good marketing package in terms of what do you bring to them. And that is very, very important to understand. And it's a comment that I think Greg made as well, which is, is what can Fulbright do for me, as opposed to, what can you do for the Fulbright? What can you do for the host country? What can you do for the host institution? And I think it's really, really important to think about that. My teaching experience was great. It took a lot of work to prepare. Although I'm an expert in these areas of U.S. law, it does not mean that I can teach these subjects just from the get-go to an audience of international students. And Yonsei does have a very major profile as an international university, and there are a lot of international students at Yonsei University, and so these are the students, hailing from different countries in my classes at Yonsei there. So I really did. It required a lot of work to custom tailor these courses that I would offer in the United States. And in the US, we would have a ready-made textbook. Here it is. I adopted, please go buy it. And here you go. Let's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, that sort of thing. It doesn't really work like that when you're thinking about teaching to an international audience. You do have to custom tailor these materials, and so I had to do a lot. I basically had to provide teaching packages, just kind of create my own teaching packages prior to going to the country, and it took a lot of time to do that, but I think it was time well worth it. And particularly with respect to partnerships and LLCs, as you're going to see a little bit. So in terms of the final delivery of my experience there, so I did end up writing not an academic book, which was a part of my initial proposal. So things can kind of go in different ways, but I did end up writing an academic article, a very substantial article, and in my opinion, the most thorough treatment of Korean American rules of corporate law, and that's the article that you see there on the right. That was published in the Wake Forest Law Review, and it did a fairly systematic analysis of important corporate law rules under U.S. corporate law and under Korean corporate law. And so it wasn't a book, but it was a very substantial academic article. The other part of it is I was just talking about the teaching package. So I had to prepare a teaching package for corporate law and LLCs and partnerships. Now, in Korea, there are, of course, corporations. Their partnership laws and their LLC laws are very rudimentary, in my view. I mean, just I looked at the statute, and just not as developed as American law in that respect. And so they had a very substantial corporate law, of course, and so I had to really write write and put together course materials dealing with partnerships and LLCs. And it was a pretty thick packet. And what ended up happening was, because I did so much work to prepare a presentation of partnership law and LLC law to a Korean audience and an international audience, that at the end of the process, I had this big thick packet, and I was thinking, well, why don't I just publish this? So I had to do additional work, much more work, but I did end up ultimately putting together essentially a textbook that would be principally for of course American students, but one that and what where the origins of the projects actually ended up being the work that I had to do to prepare to deliver these courses to at Yonsei. So with respect to the book, this is the acknowledgement in the book, and you can see from the acknowledgement that the origins of this particular project was really trying to deliver the key lessons and of American corporate law and laws of limited liability companies to a foreign audience, and they ended up being the test subjects for this project. So it was a tremendous professional experience being there. I think it's really true that when you are there, that sometimes maybe the program is very structured, but other times, and it's been my experience, that is very unstructured. I just had to be there in terms of teaching classes, which is really the core part of my Fulbright. But other than that, the time was left up to me, and it's really up to, in my experience, up to me to kind of reach out to the Korean colleagues, have these exchanges, and they were very fruitful. So I participated in a conference, and just exchange of ideas and discussions over meals and over drinks, and office talk. I also got acquainted with these Korean judges that you see there. And they were visitors at UF Law School, and so we had a meeting up of Gator Nation among Korean judiciary in Korea as well. So it was a really good professional experience. And so all in all, I think I think a lot of the things that were talked about, I think there's a consistent message here, which is that I think we should look for the Fulbright opportunities. The opportunities that we select, I think should be a thoughtful process in terms of how does the applicant and the host nation and the host institution, how do they fit together in a way where you can present a really thoughtful application package that I think will really rise to the top in terms of the selection process. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Robert. for very thoughtful, I mean, sharing your experience and also giving some pointers for the potential folks who are applying for Fulbright. Quickly, I'd like to add to the language question. There is a language requirement. Obviously, when you're going to a foreign country which speaks different language, there's a specific question. So this is one of those strategic decisions you need to make. Both of us, me and Robert, we went to South Korea. He speaks Korean, as he mentioned. I don't. I am what they call linguistically challenged. I speak 3 languages, write everything, but not Korean. So my teaching was no problem because it was in English language. The entire course was English. But the research, I had to go interview nonprofit leaders. For that, I had to have some language, at least interpreters, right? So the research letter, they actually gave me 5 hours a week research support for my local graduate student. So they specifically wrote, this research assistant will help Dr. Kumaran in terms of translation, interpretation. In addition to that, our colleagues also will help when and if needed. So you have to, because just like grant writing folks, you need to make the reviewer's life easy. You don't want them to ask questions. So when I mentioned that the teaching is in English, but the research I will have support from the local institution, and they provided that in the letter as well. With that, let's open up for questions to Dr. Rhee.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. My classes were also in English, and so I think I'm not sure that in terms of most Fulbright teaching positions that you have to teach in the language of the country, but that's something that would be very clear from the application itself.
And we have 15 minutes. Any questions to any of the presenters or anybody in the audience?
Just a typical insight. I think Robert hit it really well, but it bears thing is what makes your Fulbright application and your story memorable. I think that's the one thing we always work with when I'm helping people write them is I'm saying, what about this? Don't be boring. Just, you can't. It has to, whatever it is. And then we find a good story in everything. And we and I think that's where we often will work this through to try to make sure it's good. So that's often why we end up, wherever you're talking about, make a good story.
Yeah, and I also wanted to kind of share my experience there. While I was there, I was asked to advise reviewing the applications for the next year. So in the capacity of providing advice, I sat in on the selection process and the application review process. And what I really observed there in terms of Fulbright Korea, I don't know whether it's the same for Fulbright France or South Africa or any of the other nation. I can just only speak in terms of what my experience was, that there, the things that we have said here really are very important. I've seen applications of here's me, here's how great I am, those kinds of applications, and they may not do as well. And the Fulbright is not looking at this person comes from Harvard University. I don't think that that's necessarily of dispositive weight. I think it's really what I saw in terms of my observations was that is how thoughtful is that application? What really is the meaningful contribution that you provide to the host nation and the host institution, and how thoughtful is the proposal, whether it's research or teaching or both, that really garners the most amount of weight. And so I think that's what really person seeking to make an application really should spend a lot of time with, which is going through all the list of different opportunities, and then determine for oneself, where do I fit in? Where can I make the most contribution? So in very much, it is a form of service. It's a form of service to Fulbright, to the host nation, to the host institution as well. And so it really should be, you really look through that lens.
I wanted to respond to Hevel's question about doing a specialist of Haiti and Caribbean. Could you study the Caribbean in Korea? Yes, because we pulled it off before. Last year, we did a Fulbright postdoc wanted to study Cuba from a Spanish Fulbright. And the first version, I forget who, I have his name. I think we should get his application because what he brought in, it was all about Cuba. And I'm like, oh no, this thing, why should Spain give up one of their valuable Fulbright slots to have you study Cuba? And so we tangled on this. We worked on it and we got it. So he made a great case for what does Cuba mean for Spain and how does it do things and why, and then he won, but we took 3 or 4 really hard iterations to tune it. And then it became a really cool Fulbright because he made a great case for why studying all these Cuban different aspects was critical to Spanish history and stuff. So it really worked out. And then he won it. And I feel it was really great. But it was a real bank shot of a proposal. So you got to do that. So having pulled it off, you have to be really compelling. And then it went from being a backdoor Cuba proposal to a really cool, innovative Spanish proposal. And so that's the answer I would have about studying the Caribbean from Korea, is you'd have to make a really good case as to why Koreans would be very interested in what's going on in Haiti or the Caribbean. But it can be done. But I think it would make it memorable, but it's a bit of like when we call in pool, it's a bank shot. It's a little trickier, but one can do it. So, yep. Okay. Other questions? These are great questions. I mean, I've been doing DM responses too about specific things. So, and happy to continue offline in the weeks ahead as people put these together. I usually work with 3 or 4 people a year to start constructing them, get networks, get things, start crafting the idea and the content. Claire, do we have a bank of all the winners? I think they owe us that. If we help them, they must give us their winning proposals, that we could start sending people to give you ideas and inspirations across different sectors.
I think that's the idea that was proposed at one of the meetings, but I don't know whether, many folks have contacted me directly after the CALS workshop and I've sent them all. But I think it makes sense that we create a bank that will be for wider distribution.
Yeah, if we help them, they owe it.
Sorry, we're in the process. It's a requirement of the support program that you give us. If you win an award, you give us a copy of your project statement.
Yeah, I think they give us as much. If we could get the personal statement too, it'd be nice, because those are just as important. Though, some people are like, the personal statements. No. They are. Remember, every single thing in this application is critical. There is not one section of this application that is not read over by people who are really into it. We went through the letters of support. I went through the personal statements like a fine-tooth comb. I went through everything. It's a short application. Make every sentence count. Don't just cut, paste. That just won't work. But the good news is it really is, most of the ones that win are very tight applications. They have a great arc. They have a great story to them. Because remember, no one from your field is going to read this. No one. I can almost guarantee that with statistical certainty that whatever field you're in, there will not be somebody in your field reading this. So if you jargon it up, it won't go. So that's why we read it now, to get it So it really does. A great Fulbright proposal really is a very inspirational piece. It's great. I mean, I love reading them because they show off what makes every single professor here at Florida special. But it's a different thing that makes everybody special.
And
And
also,
as a
Fulbright does not end with your teaching research or teaching research assignment. It goes way beyond. Professor Rhee was talking about how it inspired him to write this book. That is powerful stuff. I wrote an article. In fact, I gave a co-authorship to the research assistant who helped me in translation. And there was also regional travel funds available.
Yeah.
So I traveled to Vietnam to make a presentation. Any endless possibilities. And in addition to being a part of this global community of Fulbrighters, there are several other opportunities while you are on the assignment. So it's entirely left to you to take it to the different levels.
and
A
one
really
of the
good proposal. Oh, sorry. A really good proposal might get funded by the country itself. I've had people do that too. They said, well, I didn't get the Fulbright, but I got some money from the country because they want to do this anyway. And so I was like, hey, hooray, go, go, go. So, go ahead,
And
Rob.
I just want to emphasize, I don't think you have to have a connection to the country in terms of speaking a language or having been born there or having studied there or anything like that. As a part of my work on the Fulbright committee, we work through applications and we do a review of applications before they actually go out to the Fulbright, and we help applicants, mostly students. So when I read these applications, I read carefully the what Greg was saying, which is the personal statements, and I want to know what is the actual connection to the particular opportunity. And so, and during the interview process and the conversation process with the applicant, it does become readily clear that whether or not somebody has a particular interest. So if you have an interest in, for example, studying Swedish family law, my field, for example, there has to be, I think there should be a really connection, a strong connection of why Sweden, even though you may not have been born there, you may not speak Swedish, so forth, but why the particular country, why the particular host institution, why the particular opportunity. And I think that that's really a very, very important part of the application package.
And Greg mentioned this earlier. Some countries have commissions, Fulbright commissions, like India, or like South Korea. South Korea has its own commission. So you need to be mindful about that, because it is my understanding countries with commissions tend to be very picky, right? Because other countries, it's a U.S. Embassy, public diplomacy section handles most of it. But countries with the commission, they bring their own experts and so on and so forth. So these are the small things that you need to be mindful about when you package your application.
There's a quick question on Flex grants. No, they get put in with the same pool as regular Fulbrights, so they still have to be pretty compelling and cool. What does Flex? There are different considerations. Flex does not pay for your family. Like I got 2 other dependents on, so I have a family of 6, right? So I got 4 kids. They paid for my spouse and 1 other kid. The rest was on me. But they do but Flex Awards only pay for 1 person to go there 3 times. So there are differences in the awards to do that. So, but you go in the same pool. So if you're writing a South Africa Flex proposal, they go in the same pool and they get decided along with everything else. We had big discussions whether Flexes were like disadvantaged in a way. We never found that. We never had any clear indication that they were. They cost less. They cost, there's less per year, but they last longer. Same amount of money, just drawn out over 2 or 3 years. They're just different. You still have to make a really good case. It has to be very evident why you want to come at this time or when you're coming and what you're going to do. You still have to have a methodology. I read lots of great Flex ones that we approved, that we said, oh, yeah, that's great. I never chose Fulbrights. I just stopped some, so, but the HR was at least we gave plenty of Flex ones high ratings because they were well thought out and very interesting. The one, again, don't be boring. That's the one thing. Death in a Fulbright is a boring one. What makes it special? And we will find that. And again, every story is special.
Okay, folks, we have a final few minutes. If we do not have any questions at this point? No questions. I'd like to thank Professor Kiker and Professor Rhee for the excellent presentation and responding to the questions and giving their inputs. Also, I'd like to thank Claire and Mabel for all the support in this and all the good folks at U of Fulbright Committee, as well as International Center for organizing these series of events on the Fulbright Awareness Month. Those who are seeking or in the process of applying for Fulbright, we wish you the best. Make no mistake, this is an intense process, but at the end of it, the price is all worth it.
Totally worth it.
Guaranteed.
Always worth it.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks a lot.